Today we're going to be looking at a game by Carl Chudyk called Innovation. This is actually a little bit of an older game, came out in 2010 I believe, and it's been a real hit with me and the group I play with, my family, my wife and I play it quite a bit. It's an excellent game and I'm really excited to show it to you today. I think everyone should play this game because it's really simple, easy to learn, but there's a lot of strategy, a lot of neat things going on in the game, and it's very, very unique. So I hope you'll check it out. So this is Innovation. This is a civilization building game. The civilizations advance through the different ages in the game, ages 1 through 10, and the cards in the game represent innovations. That's why the game's called Innovation. And so as you play cards, you're discovering innovations, technologies for your civilization, and as you advance through the ages, you play more advanced innovations, and you get more powerful effects, and your civilization becomes more powerful and you can do more things. The object of the game is to be the first player to claim the required number of achievements. That required number depends on the number of players. So in a 2-player game, the number of achievements you need to win is 6. A 3-player game requires 5, and a 4-player game requires 4 achievements. However, you can also use the special ability of one of your innovations to change the win condition and to end the game early. Those kinds of special changes are only available in the later ages, ages 8, 9, and 10. So if you're playing a game that's going a little longer and innovations from ages 8, 9, and 10 are being played, you may want to start looking out for that because the game could end early and kind of foil your plans to win through the basic achievement strategy. So, if achievements are the main way to win the game, how do you get them? So achievements are these cards here in the middle, and the main achievements, there's only 9 of them, can be claimed by scoring the required number of points for that age. So an age 1 achievement can be claimed by scoring 5 points. You need to have 5 times the age number in points in your score area in order to claim that achievement. In addition, you also need to have a top card in your area, in your civilization, that is equal to or greater than that age number. So for example, to claim the age 5 achievement, you need to have 25 points or more, and you need to have an age 5 or higher card face up as the top card in your area. That just signifies that you have achieved a certain level of advancement in your civilization by scoring points, and you have achieved a technology that is level 5 or higher, age 5 or higher. So once you have that, you can use one of your actions on your turn to claim the achievement, and you tuck it underneath your board like this. And now you have 1 achievement and you're that much closer to winning. There are also 5 special achievements which can be claimed if you meet certain special conditions. These are all usually signs of advanced civilizations, so most of them can't be claimed till later in the game. For example, this card requires that you have 12 or more clock icons on your board, and those clock icons don't become available until age 7, so you can't even touch this achievement until age 7. These other ones require that you have a certain number of all of the icons available, or you have all of your cards are level 8 or higher. So there's a variety of different ways to claim those, but they're usually not claimed till later in the game. However, there are some innovations that you can get even early in the game that will allow you an alternative way to claim these special achievements if you do something special and you meet certain other conditions. So if you get a card like that and you have that innovation available to you, it's a good idea to try to activate it and use that because it's a really great way to get one of these achievements early. So, achievements are the way to win, and you claim those achievements by scoring. So how do you score? Well, you score points by activating the special abilities of the innovations on your board. All of the innovations in this game have a special ability called a dogma, and you can see on these 2 right here. This clothing dogma, or this clothing innovation, for example, has a dogma that says draw and score a 1 for each color present on your board that is not present on any other player's board. So if you activate that dogma and you meet those criteria, you can score cards. And when you score cards, you take those cards and you tuck them underneath the score area of your card like this. And in this instance right here, you'll see that I would have 2 points. You just add up the age number of the cards that are underneath here, and that is your score. And over the course of the game, you're going to be tucking more and more cards. So if you tuck a 5, for example, or you score a 5, then you're going to get an age 5 card, gives you 5 points. So at this point, I would have 7 points. So that's how you score. You're going to be scoring by activating dogmas, which are the technologies, the innovations, the abilities of the innovations you have. And as you score cards, and as you score points, then you can achieve, and the more achievements you get, the closer you get to winning. The dogmas are the core of this game. They're what make this game really interesting. Every single innovation that you see, all of these different cards here, have different dogmas. They're all unique cards. There's over 100 cards in the game, and all of them have unique abilities. And those dogmas are what make this game really interesting, because they're similar to the special abilities you might find on cards in other games like Magic the Gathering or Seasons, where you can activate the ability of a card. But in this game, when you activate a dogma, you might have to share it with your opponents. So they can share that ability and they can take advantage of the innovation that you have, kind of like other Civilization games where you have a technology and your neighbors can share that with you. And in this game, when you share your technologies, you also get a benefit because you're sharing. So now let's go through the rules and give you a better idea of how the gameplay works and how the turns work, and so you can see the mechanics of the game. So at the beginning of the game, each player is going to be dealt 2 Age 1 cards. So you start with 2 cards in your hand, and each player is going to choose one of those cards to play face up as their starting card. So in this case, I think I'll take this writing card here, and I'll play that, and so I'll select that and I'll set it aside here, and the other player will do the same. They'll pick a card that they're going to have their starting card, and then we both reveal our card and we play it. And that's how we start the game. Whoever has the card that is closest to the letter A in alphabetical order is going to be the starting player. So in this case, I played writing, so I'm probably not going to start the game. Someone who maybe chose agriculture or clothing would start. So whoever has the closest to letter A starts the game. That starting player gets to take less actions on their turn just because they have the advantage of playing first. They get a little bit of a disadvantage by having less actions to do on their turn. So on your turn, you get to take 2 actions. Normally, every player will get to take 2 actions on their turn. Like I said, the starting player will only get to have 1 action that very first turn, and then after that, after their subsequent turns, they'll get to take 2 actions like everyone else. In a 4-player game, the first 2 players get only 1 action on their first turn. But on a normal turn, you're going to get to take 2 actions. And what are those actions? Good question. Your little board here, your little player board, is a little cheat, and it has, not a cheat, but it's a little reference card, and it shows you all the different things that you can do. It tells you what some of the keywords mean, and it tells you what all the actions are that you can take on your turn. So let's go through them one at a time. So the 2 actions that you have, you can take any number of those actions in any order you want, and you can repeat those actions as well. So if you want to just draw twice on your turn, or meld twice, or achieve twice, you can do that. You can do whatever you want with your 2 actions. So the simplest one, probably the simplest one, is the meld action. Meld, for those of you familiar with other card games, simply means play a card. So melding a card means taking a card and playing it down on your board. Your board is going to be the cards you have in play here. So, for example, this might be my board. And when I meld a card, I simply play it on my board. Now, when you meld a card, you must put it on top of any other cards that are the same color as that. So for example, if I melded this card is red, and I already have a red card in play, so when I meld this, it goes on top of that and covers up the other cards below it. So as you can see, there are 5 different colors of cards in this game, and at any one time you're only ever going to have 5 top cards that are face up that represent your 5 different innovations that you have in your that are active, that are your main innovations in your civilization. So whenever you meld a card, it plays on top of any other card that is the same color, so that you only have 5 different colors visible at any one time. So that's melding, pretty straightforward. So the next action you can take is drawing. When you take a draw action, you are drawing a card that is equal to the highest number of technologies that you have, innovations that you have present on the board. So right now, this is my highest value card, which is a 1, which is the same as the age number, so it matches. All the values of the cards match the age number. So if I took a draw action right now, I would look for my highest number. My highest number is 1, so I would draw an age 1 card and add it to my hand. Okay? So one of the interesting parts about this game is that whenever you have to take a draw action and there are no cards available that are of the appropriate level for you, then you move up 1 age and draw from that level, and so on. So for example, if this was my tableau down here, if this was my board, and I took a draw action, I would normally draw 1. But if the age 1 cards and the age 2 cards were all gone, then I would get to draw an age 3 card. So that's how that works. The draw action allows you to draw a card, add it to your hand, and again, if there are no legal cards available for you to draw that match, you get to go up 1 level, and so on. So those are pretty simple. Play a card, draw a card. Those are 2 of the actions you can take. The third action you can take is achieving. As I mentioned earlier, you can claim an achievement by having a score that is equal to 5 times the age number. And if you look at all of the achievement cards, you will see all of the actually age cards have the age number in the corner here, and they have it in both corners actually, so it can be used for scoring or for the achievement. And it tells you, the little circle here tells you how many points you need to claim this as an achievement. So all these starting achievements down here, there's only 9 of them, they all have the score number right there, so you can see how many points you need, which is 5 times the age number. So to do the achieve action, you simply need to have at least that number of points in your score area, and a face-up card that is equal to that age number or higher, as I mentioned earlier. So to take the achieve action, you simply take the achievement, and then you tuck it under your board, like so, to reveal that you have one there, and then you're done with that action. It's important to remember that an achievement, to claim an achievement, is an action. So if you get 5 points in your turn, or 10 points, or whatever the number is you need to make sure you save an action so you can claim that achievement. If you get to 20 points, and then your opponent also has 20 points, but you have no actions left, he might take that achievement before you. So it's important to plan that carefully so that you can make sure you claim that achievement on your turn. So those are 3 of the actions, and the last one is really the meat of the game. It is the dogma action. When you take a dogma action, you pick one of the cards on your board, and you pick a top card on your board. The top card is the top up-facing card, and you execute all the effects on that card. So for example, if I activated the dogma, if I took a dogma action on this card, I would draw a 2. This is the primary icon for this dogma, and it lets me draw a 2, which means draw an age 2 card. So if I activated the dogma on this card, I would get to draw a 2. So when you activate a dogma, you activate and you use all of the effects on that card. So for example, this clothing card has 2 different effects on it. When I activate clothing, I must take both of these actions here. Both of these effects are going to trigger. I can't choose to only do the bottom one or only do the top. When I trigger this dogma, both of them trigger. That's important, especially later as things get more complicated, because some of the dogmas might be positive for you and some of them might be negative for you depending on the situation in the game. So when you trigger, everything on the card will trigger. So once you decide to trigger a dogma, you look at the icons on that are the primary icon for that dogma, and then you count the number of those on your board, and each other player also counts the number of those icons on their boards. And then you decide what happens. So there's 2 different kinds of dogma. There are non-demand effects, and there are demand effects. Okay, and let me tell you about those in reverse order. So a demand dogma will say the words "I demand" in bold, right here, like in this archery. I demand that you draw a 1 and then transfer the highest card in your hand to my hand. So this is an attack. All of the demand dogmas are attacks. They basically force your opponents to do something that they don't want to do, generally, like give you cards, or give you scorecards, or discard some of their cards, all those different kinds of things. So when you activate a dogma and it has a demand effect, like I said earlier, you're counting icons. So in this case, this is a icon. This is a castle icon, a gray castle icon. So everyone's going to count those, and anyone that has less than that number of icons than I do is going to be affected by this. So demand icons are attacks. So anyone that has less of those icons is affected. It's just the way to think about it, that I think about it, is that those icons signify like your knowledge or your ability in whatever that icon is. It's, you know, maybe defense, for example, right, or offense. It's a military kind of a symbol, right? So if I have more of these symbols than other people, then I can use that ability, that advantage, and activate these kind of abilities that require those castles. So in this case, I do have more castles than anybody else because my opponent has no cards visible. So I activate this dogma and this triggers. I demand, and the best way to do it is to read it aloud to your opponent. I demand that you draw a 1, then transfer the highest card in your hand to my hand. So they're going to draw 1, and just like any other draw action, if there's no 1s available, then they would draw 2 or 3 or whatever. So it's treated like a draw action. So they will draw a 1 and then transfer the highest card in their hand to my hand. So that's how that works. And this happens to every other player. So in a 4-player game, if I was the only one, or if I had the most castles of anyone, then all 3 of the other players would be affected by it. So these can be very powerful, especially in a 3 or 4-player game, because you're going to impact a lot of people. So that's a demand effect. There are also non-demand effects, and this card is actually a great example because it has both on there. It has a demand effect first, and then a non-demand effect. So non-demand effects work the opposite way, and this is very unique about this game. Non-demand effects are shared. So you count the number of icons when you activate the dogma, you count the number of icons that everyone has, and anyone that has the same number of that icon or more than you gets to share that effect, and they get to benefit from that effect as well. So in this case, if we activated this dogma here, now let me give you a simpler example. So we use the light bulb that we were talking about earlier that's on writing. So we count the light bulbs, and if other people had 2 or more light bulbs than I do, then they would get to draw a 2. And they get to do it first. So starting to the player on your left, they get to do it. Anybody that has the same or more of those icons, they get to share it first. And I say get to, it is a requirement. When you are allowed to share a dogma effect, you must share it. And so you must draw a 2. Usually that's not a bad thing, but sometimes it requires you to discard cards or do other things you might not want to. When you share, the player to your left, starting with the player on your left, they take that action, so they would draw 2, and then you go around the table, and anyone that has the same or more icons gets to share that, and you keep going around until you get finally back to the original player that activated the dogma, and then they get to take that action. Once everyone has taken that action, if anyone shared it, and if anybody benefited from it, if anything changed, like so if anybody drew a card, or if anybody scored, or if anybody discarded, depending on the effect, if anything changed and they shared that effect, then the player who activated the dogma gets a free draw action as a bonus for sharing. So in this case, I would trigger this, my opponent would get to draw 2, and then I would get to draw a card, and a free draw action. In this case, I only have a 1 on the board, so I would get to draw an age 1 card. So that's how dogma work. And to describe all the different dogma would take a long time because, as I said, every single card in the game is totally unique. They have different dogma actions that all do different things. Earlier in the game, again, this is only age 1. This is an age 1 card that you might start the game with this. And the dogma action is simply draw a 2. So it's simply drawing a card. It's actually a little better than a normal draw action because you're drawing an age 2 card. So this is a way to get more advanced technologies earlier than you'd normally be able to. So this is kind of a nice card. But it only does one thing. Later in the game, you're going to see cards that do crazy things. So if I activated this and I had the most factories, the most of those red factory icons on the board, I would reveal a card from my hand and then take into my hand the top card of that color from all other players' boards. So I'm basically stealing a card from other players. And then I would get to splay my yellow or blue cards up. What is splaying? Well, we'll get to that. So, I told you about the 4 different actions that you can take. Melding, which is playing a card. Drawing. Achieving, which is a really key part of the game. And Dogma, which is activating the special effects of your innovations that you have on the board. So, let me just tell you about a couple of the other things that could happen in the game, and this is really important. The other side of your scoreboard, your player board, has a little reference that tells you what some of these verbs mean, what some of these words mean. It also has a reference that tells you what ages the different icons appear. And then for those of you that may be colorblind, there are icons on all of the cards that signify what color they are. So if you can't see blue or green, you can just look for that symbol, and then you'll know what color card that is. So this little reference sheet tells you about the different abilities, the different verbs that you might see. You might have a dogma that says tuck a card, or a dogma that says return a card. This side of your player board describes what those verbs do, and it does it pretty well, so you can just read the explanations here. I won't spend the time to go through them. However, there is one verb that is very unique and very important to the game, so I'm going to take a minute or two to show you exactly how it works. That verb is splay. When you splay cards, you are shifting them one direction so that you can reveal the icons underneath. So if you activate an effect that says splay your purple cards to the left, when you splay left, you take the top card and every card underneath it and you scoot them over like this, you spread them out, and you reveal the cards, one icon underneath it. All of the cards in this game have 4 icons on them. They have one that represents the actual innovation, which is going to be somewhere on the card. And then there are 3 others somewhere else that are going to be these special icons that relate to the dogma effects. So when you splay left, or when you splay any direction, you're going to be revealing those icons that are on those cards that are normally hidden. So in this case, I have these number of icons, and I have 2 green on my board. After I splay the purple cards left, I reveal another green icon, and now I have 3 green icons on my board, which might be helpful because now I might be able to activate this dogma, which requires green, and now I can activate it and I don't have to share it with my neighbors, for example. So splaying allows you to reveal other icons to basically increase the power of your board, to increase your standing so that you're not affected by negative dogma, and that you can take advantage of dogma that only you want to have so you don't have to share them with your neighbors. So that's splaying left. You can also splay right. When you splay right, you reveal the icons on the right side of the card. And all of the cards have 2 icons on the left side like this. So when you splay to the right, you're taking your cards and you're scooting them to the right, and you're revealing the 2 icons on the right side. That's not a really great example, but if you look at the red cards here, you'll see right here, if I had to display my red cards, let me give you this example here. So if I had to display my red cards right, I'd display them this direction, and now I revealed 2 icons on this card beneath. And if I had other red cards that had icons on the right side, I'd be getting 2 extra icons for every card. So splaying right is more powerful than splaying left. When you splay left, you only get to reveal 1 icon per card. And the final way that you can splay is splaying up. And that's obviously the best way to splay because there are 3 icons on the bottom of every card. So if I had my purple cards and I had an effect that let me splay up, I'd splay them up like this, and now I'm revealing 3 icons on every card in that pile, which is really super excellent. It allows me to get a lot more power out of every one of those cards, and it really allows me to dominate the icon battle, which is a really key part of the game. So splaying allows you to stretch the cards out to reveal part of each of the cards underneath the pile. And that allows you to take advantage and to get more icons. And later in the game, as your piles get bigger, because you're stacking up your cards, you want to start splaying those piles so that you can reveal more icons. So that's really the keys to the game. Those are the key mechanics. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you how to set up the game. I'm going to take you back to the kind of the basic board, just walk you through what the setup is, and then we'll do a demo so you can see how the game works and see the game in action.